Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Definitely a great symposium thus far. We have 10 minutes to kind of synthesize what we did this semester, so I'll do my very best. Once again, my name is Jack Monell in the Department of History, Politics, and Social Justice, specifically in the Justice Studies Cognitive or major, and of course, faculty adopter for the spring 2021 year. The course for which I presented and got accepted for was my social justice course, JUS 4330, which is an upper level course for us, housed in our public policy and social justice specialization. And typically for this course, it's a high impact, high engaged course where students are charged with identifying a social injustice, and I leave it very open-ended. And in doing so, students identify that social injustice, whatever it is, and they're charged with engaging with the community, finding a community partner for which throughout the entire semester, they're both working on solutions and how to address these various injustices we see sadly throughout our society. This semester, or this last year period, has been quite challenging for that. But in typical fashion, our students are resilient, and they were able to, do some Zoom calls and things of that nature to kind of work with various groups. For myself, I tend to be very active with students and encourage them, and as we all do, empower them to speak their truths. This image right here is several of our alum that were involved in spearheading many of the protests here in the city last summer. To address many of the injustices we had seen that prior year, for those of you that recall. Typically, we have so I facilitate the course assignments in groups, typically 3 to 4 groups where students work together with that community partner. This semester was kind of interesting because of the fact that I went from a rostered class of 45 normally to about 17 students. So the groups were kind of much smaller, and it was just different than in years past. But nonetheless, we did the best we could. Of course, this is a CADS integration course, which when I presented this to the students at first, one could imagine they weren't jumping for joy because they were like, this is a social justice course. We're supposed to talk about social injustices and have fun and this and that. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Data's not fun? So we had a very interesting dialogue as how significant and important data is to support the issues that we want to argue, fight for. So after we got over that hump, we kind of were able to proceed forward. For this particular course, we had 2 learning modules. Ultimately, the first learning module dealt with, it was more so kind of introductory. And you'll see from the demographics of the students in a bit, most of them were justice studies students, but all of them hadn't taken research courses either in the past. So once again, the data concept or notion was I guess, alarming to them, because once again, they felt like maybe they weren't prepared, as maybe our research students would be. But nonetheless, the first part of the module delved into kind of explaining to them and doing various class activities where we would integrate, readings, articles, things of that nature, and having students identify various, themes they saw in articles and use the associated data sets. We had 2 data sets that they were using throughout the semester to analyze and support the readings that they were assigned. As far as demographics, once again, they were very low, to the exception of one. All of my students were African American. The majority were women or young ladies, with a few males. The majority were juniors. And for our justice majors, typically, they begin their research sequence their junior year. So it wasn't surprising that several of them didn't take the research courses. Some of them may have taken statistics or something along those lines prior to, but that sometimes is a rarity nowadays, as it was once. And then, of course, part of it was explaining to them what is this whole applied data science thing. how does this relate to social justice, right? And for many of them, it was an opportunity in my earlier lectures to basically explain to them the fundamental practices of research, of conducting survey research, of understanding the theoretical kind of alignments with how we conduct research and how do we understand what data means to us. In our secondary major lecture, we delved more so into secondary data. What does that mean for students? Because quite frankly, if they didn't take our preparatory, kind of our introductory research course and our upper level research course, they would be, it would be a foreign concept to them, and they wouldn't know how to explain it or analyze it in a manner that's conducive for the assignments. So we talked about the various types of data that we collect. One being for criminal justice professionals and researchers and scholars, self-reporting data is definitely one that continues to be one of the top ones in reference to how we analyze data. And then many of them found it funny. Once again, we have to understand the generation that, they didn't realize, we used to do phone surveys. Households had phones in them, and we used to collect data in that fashion, which, once again, is always a joke when we talk to students that way. I initially did a quick survey quiz for them when we opened up the semester to kind of gauge their level of understanding of various kind of terminologies and type of tables or evaluative tools that we use. And as you can tell from the chart, many of them did understand kind of, what crosstab evaluate, crosstab, what it means when you have a crosstab table, what it means when you have a t-test, things of that nature. And they knew what theory was in the guise of explaining various social phenomena. Where they were a little bit weaker in was the types of theories that we use in research and scientific research. And more importantly, which was kind of interesting, kind of what investigative research meant and kind of what we were doing in the classroom.
Dr. Monell, you have 2 minutes left.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. I got to keep it going. All right. So then I'm going to bypass this. So then the remainder of the lectures dealt with that. So let's go. Sheesh, that goes fast. All right, Joe. So basically their first assignment, their module 1 assignment, dealt with identifying readings throughout their textbook. They had to align it with various variables in the data set that was assigned to them. And from there, they had to produce a result. So this is their module 1 assignment. For their module 1 assignment, they basically identified different things. And this was their first set of assignments. So it's very basic in nature. So the requirement had to deal with bar charts and pie charts and things of that nature, just capturing the variables, uploading them and explaining them to their assignments. So one student did prejudice and inequality, which tends to be very popular in the course. Another one dealt with wealth inequality and kind of presented data in reference to that, supporting it. And then finally, for this particular assignment, another student did mass incarceration and showing the disparities as it pertains to race. Module 2 assignment, which actually they're completing as we speak, is a more sophisticated, assignment where they have to expand on the research analysis in reference to crosstabs and t-tests and things of that nature. I don't have time for the video, but this was one of their Spark assignments that they presented. But this was something similar to what Dr. Miner kind of mentioned in her presentation. So one of the students, I was asking them, what does data science mean to you now? And one of them was, applied data science has helped me see the reality of how much we still need to do in the area of social reform. Hearing a victim's testimony makes an impact, but who can argue against data? And then secondly, you never know how big of an issue something is until you see the data. I would have never known half the stuff I know now until looking at data and understanding how it relates to social phenomena. And then in solidarity with social injustices throughout our country, this is my social justice class. And I think that's about it, y'all. I had to speed through the last. I'm so sorry. But I'll entertain any questions. I don't think we have any, but I mean, our time. But thank you for everything, and I'll stop sharing.